There you go. The joys of remote work. No ties, no collars, wrinkles, sweatpants, whatever you want. As long as you look okay from the shoulders up on a video call, right?
Oh, are you kidding me? I think the first client meeting I had as a freelancer, I just put in a nice shirt and I was on my underwear underneath that and just made sure the camera was from here up.
I always thought that was just, a joke or just something to say to be funny, but literally you did that.
I've done that a couple times, yeah.
That's fun.
My job interview with David, I had a nice button-on shirt with sweats underneath. Yeah, man, that's the way to do it.
And that's how we're going to intro the show. Perfect.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to BizDev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I am not David Baxter, your host, so you're just going to have to stick with me. I'm Gary Voigt filling in for him. He'll be back next time, but fear not, this week I am joined by two very special guests, and I will be relying on them pretty heavily to pick up the slack. So welcome. Today with me is Juan and Siua, and Juan is a senior developer at Big Pixel, and Siua is our project manager. Say hello, guys.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
Wow. Definitely entertainers. Such great intros. Well, we'll just get into this. We have been covering some topics in the news lately related to Facebook and Apple and whatnot. The Metaverse has come up, and then, of course, we poked some fun at Zuckerberg for the Iceland video. But the Metaverse is just back in the news again, and there is a article that we happen to see, and everybody read it, right, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. It's an article from Wired Magazine, and we will link it in the show notes. And this explores the metaverse with a twist, kind of combining it with AR, but instead of it just being like in your home on your computer with the goggles, this is kind of more of a going outside and exploring the world with the AR altered reality. Now, in the article, the first thing you're going to see is that this really takes off from Pokemon Go, right? The guy who created Pokemon Go is the one interviewed.
Yeah, John Hanke, he originally wrote a blog post on his company website on Niantic, speaking of, and I think it echoed pretty well the thoughts that I had about the metaverse when the Zuckerberg started talking about, which is he's referencing the term from several like sci-fi books. I think one of them was the one Snow something was the one that originally kind of coined it, but they position it kind of like a dystopian future type of thing. While Zuckerberg's talking about how this wonderful thing that is going to save us all, it's going to make life better. But my understanding has always been that this means that if we're there, we kind of screwed up as a society. It's not like the end goal of humanity. That means that we messed up pretty badly.
So their version of the metaverse is more of like the replacement of an actual society.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch Ready Player One, that's exactly what it is. It's a fun movie, but it's kind of a depressing movie. It's like, oh, life sucks. Let's just go online.
Yeah, Ready Player One is referenced a lot when talking about the metaverse and what the future will hold, I guess. Now, they interviewed him. I'm not going to go into the whole article. You can read it. But there was a few takeaways that I thought were very interesting. The idea of combining entertainment, creativity, and education all together, inside or outside. Like the idea of exploring your city and having, whatever the historical monuments or buildings or anything around, like just pop up with some information if you're interested in it. Or taking the creativity part and like throwing in, I think he mentioned, which is topical, like a little animated Ghostbusters scene wrapped around a building in your city. And I guess the creativity part would be implementing kind of your own ideas into that world and pushing them out into the AR world, and other people can kind of immerse themselves through it. What did you guys take away from the actual experience of what he wants to see and what you think it will become?
So I think it's unavoidable, right? I have kids. I don't know about you guys, but this guy made Pokemon Go, and I played summers of Pokemon Go with my kids. They're already doing this. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, it was a huge craze. Huge.
Oh, yeah. They're already doing it. AR is part of a lot of the games that the kids play, and it might be kind of weird and new to us, but it's already natural for them. So for our generation, it might not be a huge deal, but going forward, they're already indoctrinated. It's just going to keep getting more and more. I do think Zuckerberg's view on it is kind of weird. It's like he wants people to escape reality. I do like this view better, where it's more like, hey, let's bring the digital world and combine it with what's going on. I do like that view a whole lot more. And I think that one is going to be the one that's accepted by my kids a lot easier as they get older.
Yeah, because like you said, they already have, and yeah, I remember when Pokemon Go came out. I spent that hours after work at 3 a.m. in a random park with my wife, just catching Pokemon, and it was fantastic. And I still play it from time to time, and that is I think the better version of what they're trying to do, which is get outside, still interact with people, but let me put another layer on top of that enhances your experience, as opposed to strapping a 20-pound headset to your head. So you're looking at a crappier version of what's already there.
Yeah, when Pokemon Go came out, I remember a lot of stories were focused around kind of the point of it's a video game that gets you back outside and exercising some more instead of just sitting staring at a screen. They compared it to the Wii a lot. Like, yeah, of course, there's exercise and sports games on the Wii where you're moving your body around, but you're still inside staring at a screen. So they were, touting Pokemon Go as like a revolution into, the mixture of some sort of exercise and experience and gameplay all together.
Man, because after it's been 18, 20 months of being semi locked up inside, I've never been one to actually go out much. But if I'm told I can't go out, it's just a whole different thing. It's like you get a little bit claustrophobic, and I don't think strapping a headset to your face and not going out for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week it's just the future I envision.
Yeah. Now they're also referencing, when you're speaking about headsets in this article, they are referencing like a set of glasses, again, probably similar to what the metaverse will have. It's just a matter of how much you'll be able to see the real world versus the digital world, and how clunky these things feel on your head. But, optimistically, it would be pretty cool. They were talking about, can you imagine walking through your city and you can play little, like I said before, videos or movies of things happening around from, like imagine Harry Potter and his buddies flying through the city. Imagine seeing King Kong climbing up and down buildings and planes going after him. Now, these are older references for me, but imagine places like Disneyland and what they could do with it. They wouldn't have to spend so much money creating actual physical spaces, but I'm sure they could totally optimize the AR experience and put you in a place where it's like a virtual Disneyland that's like 15 times the size and the amount of stuff that you can consume.
He's bringing back Google Glass.
Oh, you think it's going to be Google Glass?
That's the only thing I remember, man. People wearing the Google Glass and looking, all the San Francisco hipsters with them looking all cool and cheap.
A bunch of glass holes.
Yes, and being kicked out of coffee shops. So we're going back to that.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be weird. I love the idea and the optimistic viewpoint, but again, and I think this might just be from Facebook, but the other side of my brain goes immediately to how are they going to target advertising to us this way? And how bad is this going to be for our actual socializing as humans? Like, it might actually hinder the experience depending on, I don't know, who gets their hand on monetizing it the most.
Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed, there are people already buying like virtual space. Like companies have already bought it within Facebook's Metaverse. They're renting out their space for like downtown shops where people can walk through and shop with cryptocurrency. So there's a lot that's already going into it. It's already been planned out. So there's no doubt it's going to be heavily advertised and marketed experience.
Oh, that's great. So that means I can walk down Times Square and look at real advertising and fake advertising.
It's totally Minority Report.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to rent out my recording studio here, which is just a closet, but I'm going to rent it out as a digital space with an NFT. There you go.
There you
Cover
go.
all the trends, all the topics.
Now you guys were kind of making fun of NFTs a little while ago. I actually really like them. I think it's a great thing.
Okay, don't confuse us. Our lack of understanding and ignorance and sarcasm combined. But it's not really that we're making fun of NFTs. I can't speak for David, but I can speak for myself. I love seeing artists thrive in the NFT space, but I also hate seeing subpar garbage go for millions of dollars just because it's a trend. You know what I mean? There's ups and downs to it. I don't like seeing some Instagram star put out some JPEG of them, wearing a certain outfit for thousands of dollars. And I'm making this up. I don't have an actual reference, but
I'm sure there are. There'll be plenty. We could Google it and find a bunch. But
sure.
Yeah. Along with NFTs and crypto, I mean, it's all going to happen. I don't think there's any stopping this metaverse, no matter if it's a full dive type thing like Zuckerberg wants, or if it's kind of like this. You mentioned Free Guy a while ago. If it's like that, where it's just kind of an added layer, where you wear glasses and you can explore the real world. I think, again, there's no stopping it. It's going to happen. It's just matter of time.
That was one of the coolest things in the movie Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds. I guess it came out a while ago, but it just came to streaming. Just the idea of the sunglass people being the people with the altered reality and seeing how it just layered onto the world. That was pretty cool. I love how they did it with the special effects. But so you're saying that it seems like humanity is just going virtual no matter what. Like we're going to have virtual currency, virtual reality. We're all just going to be locked into a space. Eventually, we'll just become batteries in the Matrix.
Well, hopefully not that far.
We're sort of already there. The only difference is that these people are trying to, bring part of it outside of your office space, outside of your phone, a little square that you carry around. But we're pretty much there. I transact and operate mostly online nowadays. There's little stuff, physical stuff that it sounds terrible, but that I need to go out to get or need to interact with. I can just do everything on my phone now. But if I can just throw a pair of glasses and walk around, it's sort of the same experience, just it's forcing me to walk now, I guess.
Yeah, I can understand that. I like AR, and I like experiencing it on my phone now and then, but I got to admit it's not something that I jump to or even remember is available unless I'm reminded. If a certain app will be like, hey, experience this in AR. Then I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. But if you were wearing glasses and going outside and all this stuff just kind of happened, might be pretty cool.
I was not going to tell this, but I'll bring it up. I went on a trip with my wife to Niagara Falls. I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan, so we go in December to go and watch a football game. And this is during the big Pokemon Go craze. We didn't know where to go and like what to do and like sites to see. And so my wife, she pulled out Pokemon Go, and all like the stops, they are like little, I don't know, checkpoints. Like
I remember at all the cool places to visit, right?
Yeah, yeah. And one of them, it was like, oh, there's a random one down the street, and it was like the oldest tree in Buffalo. And we went and took a picture in front of it, and like there were a whole bunch of little stops, and we found a bunch of parks and some outdoor monuments, and it was just all because of this, this little AR app on Pokemon Go that we were able to find all this stuff. So, yeah, like I said, it's if there were some sunglasses that I could wear and go on my vacation without talking to a tour guide, without, me being the person that doesn't like to talk to a ton of people, if I can just go out and explore on my own and catch all those little fun facts and see these little sites, I'd be all for it.
That does sound pretty cool. Yeah. All right, so now we're going to touch back on a topic we covered last week for us, last episode, I guess you could say, in the podcast scroll. But we talked about an article that was written and interviewed from the perspective of bosses and leaders about remote work and where the future of remote work is going. And we also talked about what David likes to call the slog, which is the period of time in between creating an idea and having whatever you built like exist, and then getting people to care about it. So I thought it would be fun from the perspective of a worker instead of a boss or an entrepreneur who has a startup to examine both of those ideas. So to go into the remote work, which everybody pretty much has been doing it for the last year and a half, but a lot of us have done it for longer. And a lot of us live and thrive within the remote space, and sometimes don't even have experiences in an office building full of people where you're rubbing elbows with managers and, bosses, CEOs, your boss's boss. You might not be cultivating that little, I guess you could say, coffee break talk or water cooler chat where you're getting to know people just on a polite level, or interacting with people that might be fans of the same sports teams or whatever. You're not really getting those relationships happening in physical space in person. But there is a way to create that culture and create those interactions even in remote spaces. As I mentioned before, I am joined today by Juan and Siua. Juan's a senior developer and Siua is our project manager here at Big Pixel. And Juan has a lot of experience working as a remote developer. Juan is also, whether he knows it or not, we tout him as pretty much the ambassador of our company culture in a remote sense. So in our Slack channels, you'll always see Juan, something funny, interesting, and cool to say, always reacts to comments, always starts a conversation, and always kind of makes you feel like you're interacting with people all day throughout the week. So Juan, how long have you been a strictly remote worker?
Well, no pressure then. I've been working remotely for, I want to say, 5 to 6 years now, and it sort of happened by accident. That wasn't really the intention I had. I started freelancing out of necessity at the time, and it kind of stuck. It worked out. It was nice. I liked the flexibility, and well, here I am.
Now, did you have any jobs prior to your remote work where you were interacting with other developers and were like sitting in a cubicle and you'd kind of see managers and senior devs like walking by, or?
Well, yes and no. No, here's the thing. I've only worked development remotely. The entire time I've worked remotely was when I started developing. Before that, I was still in IT, and working like an IT help desk. It's a little different. You are working in an office setting, but they kind of just stick you in a dungeon in a closet, and they just call you out. Yeah, if they need you. So my experience working in quote unquote office space was I am here breathing the natural air when they need me, and then I'm shut back in the closet. And my coworker was somebody that was far less social than I was, which is saying a lot. So that was my office experience.
Okay, so obviously that scenario actually sounds a little bit more dreary than remote work. It's because you have to actually go to the place, walk through other people to go to your isolated cubicle, not interact with people, then leave and drive back home to the place you would rather be.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, it's that's not to say that's going to be the same experience for everybody, even as an IT help desk. But no, that was my experience, and it didn't deter me from wanting to work in office. I still wanted to do the whole office thing, like David mentioned, just interact with my peers, having those social connections there, right there in the office, which is, I guess, why I sort of try to interact with everybody as much as I can at Slack, which is where we communicate. But I still like I keep on saying flexibility, and it's not just I can get up and leave, but it really is. I can, get up and go do something else, have a breather, take a break, and then come back and continue the whole, the social interaction, if you will. And I guess it's a nice blend between the two. At least for me, it is.
Okay. Now, Siua, have you always had office jobs prior to this one, or have you been working in a remote capacity for a little bit longer than just this recent job?
Yeah, so I've been working remotely for about 10 years now.
Wow.
For a couple companies. My only real office experience, I was a firefighter, believe it or not, in another life. And that was like my office time in the firehouse. After that, I got into program management and operations, and I've always been managing remote sales teams. And so it was more, I would travel once a quarter to go check in on these different remote sales teams and things like that. But it's been work from home because I told them I didn't want to travel too much, and they said okay. And so I've just been working from home, which has been great. I can't imagine going into an office. I know a lot of people are fighting the going back now that COVID's kind of over, but I can't imagine going in and not like running downstairs to go snag some lunch or to take a nap when I'm overworked and tired. And I can't imagine going to an office. So I don't think that is in my deck of cards.
Now, you mentioned having kids. I have kids. David has kids. And Big Pixel, as a company, we're a U.S.-based company that hires U.S.-based employees, but we are, at the moment, 100% remote. We all do have experience remote. Some of us have office experience. And like you said, a lot of people are kind of fighting the going back to work thing. The reason I brought up the kids is I can tell you, prior to working remote 100% of the time, I did work in an office, and I did work in, a cubicle in a space of other designers, and then design managers, and then salespeople, sales managers, leading all the way up to the CEO. Literally, my desk was 35 feet from the doors to the CEO of the company. And I did have those relationships. I did get to walk by and talk about stuff like surfing and skateboarding was actually a topic that I would share with the CEO of the company because he was interested in it. Now, there's two avenues I'm going to take this little point down. The first avenue is I started working from home while I was working at that business when they started scaling back. So I found the opportunity to not have to go in, work from home, and actually do things like take my kids to school, pick them up from school. I would be available if for some reason they, got sick and had to go to the doctor, or they had to stay home that day. Or if I had to run out and do a quick errand during the day, instead of waiting until I got home after like 7 p.m. to try to fit that in after dinner or whatever. And very quickly, I became very comfortable with working from home. So the kid factor and the flexibility factor that you brought up, Juan, definitely a plus. The relationship factor of being in an office and working around your peers, there was a plus, but I would say in my experience, that plus was not beneficial to me directly. And I bring this up because the article that we talked about last week, the CEO for Price Waterhouse basically said that the only way you progress in business, the only way that you can get better, and the only way you're going to get promoted is by rubbing shoulders with your peers and your seniors and building that relationship. Well, I'm here to say it did not work that way for me because the industry I was in, I had great relationships with everybody above me and a lot of the people that were either at my same level or the people, I don't like saying that anybody was below me. I would just say people in different positions. So you would think that having a great relationship with the sales team, the management, and the CEO might help my career progress forward as senior designer for the marketing division of this media company. But it didn't. And it didn't because bigger companies like that, they don't make decisions based on your personality, your personal relationships. They make decisions based on a spreadsheet. So when the company started scaling back, they look at numbers. They start making projections. They start making cuts. It didn't matter how cool I was with my manager or the CEO. It just made it harder for them to actually, cut people. But it didn't save anybody's jobs.
Right. And you bring up a good point that it's something that I thought about often when David was speaking in the previous conversation with regards, rubbing shoulders with somebody in the elevator, this and that. It all sounds like kind of like very magical, but it has to happen out of pure luck. Versus now, I am just a Slack message away from bugging David about something. If I want to tell him, hey, dude, I think you should pay me more, I can just send the message and say, hey, dude, you should pay me more. That's not something I can necessarily do in an office space. That's not something I can walk into my boss's office and knock on the door and say, hey, you got a minute to talk shop? Probably going to kick me out.
That's an excellent point.
I don't have to wait for that magical, lucky moment. I just can reach out to my peers directly and set up a Zoom call and look at them in the face, even if it's behind a screen, and have that conversation with them. And
so in a way, it can take that awkward barrier down.
Yeah, it does. It does because it's a lot of times, especially now that we're not even using Zoom, we're using huddles on Slack. It's just a click and we start talking, and there is no chit chat. There's no small talk to try to ease into the conversation. We just jump into it. It doesn't feel uncomfortable. It just feels natural, like just picking up a conversation.
And I can say for sure, at Big Pixel, working remote with the crew, with everybody that works at Big Pixel, there is really no feeling of a barrier between anybody. Not from my side, and not from what I've heard from anybody else. Just pinging someone Slack and starting that huddle, like you said, it almost cultivates where we want to go with the teamwork aspect of it, and it does help kind of break down that little awkward wall, like you said. If you're speaking to, as you as a senior designer, if we have a contractor that's coming in on a project who needs your help and they just ping you on Slack, and I've seen this happen, you instantly reach back out to them, there to help. Say, yeah, whatever, click on a huddle, dude. We'll just talk about it. Pull up your screen. We'll walk through it. That seems a little bit more instant than if you were in an office space. You're like, oh, well, that guy's in the corner office. I know I got this problem. He probably expects me to already know how to solve this problem, so I don't want to bug him with it. What is he going to say? How's he going to feel? There's that deliberation, like in your head, is happening and wasting all that time anyway. So I do like the idea that you're able to just kind of ping people with no hesitation.
I like it too, because kind of like what you're saying, Juan is the poster child of Big Pixel, like, knowing
Culture
that he's the culture king. There we go. So I like it because it's a deliberate thing now. We're not waiting for Fate's design to be in the elevator with the boss at the same time with no one else, so I can pitch my business idea or my changes or anything like that. It really is, someone sends a message, you react to it. With the little emojis, or you add a comment. But I think there's more opportunities to make yourself visible to the higher ups in bigger organizations because of your presence in Slack. Like, your name keeps popping up over and over. I do think it's more deliberate on your end, and I think it's a lot easier, like what we were talking about, just to make ourselves noticed.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that a lot of the folks that are pushing for going back to the office, circling back to the people that have just started working remotely, I know for them it's not so much that the office setting provides a lot of opportunities that they would think that otherwise wouldn't happen being at home, but it's also that it's hard for a lot of folks to separate home from work, and just the ability to get up, drive, and go somewhere, and you can set yourself mentally and physically in a space where you're there to make stuff and work on something. And going back home, you can decompress, you can let that go. It's harder. It's harder when you're at home.
100%.
It's not something that you can easily turn off. I, for one, can sit on the couch in the room an hour after work and still thinking about the same thing I was doing an hour ago.
And being so close to your computer, it's like, well, let me just go try that real quick. Let me go see if that works. Yeah. Let me just make that change.
That happens almost every day.
If you're passionate about what you do and you're right there where you do it, you can definitely kind of overlog some hours that way.
Yeah. Well, and I actually got a bunch of messages last night on Slack at like 3 a.m. from devs working, just answering questions. And
to be fair, you're in a different time zone, so they might not have intentionally tried to wake you up. But
that's true. And
I'm just joking. Go ahead.
Wasn't even mad at it at all either. It's just, I kind of like it because when you're thinking late at night and you're like, oh, I just realized this solves my problem, a quick Slack message away. And then when I get into work, I can respond to them like, okay, great. Let's do this instead. Let's pivot here. I think it's nice to be able to just work when my brain is able to work, instead of just pushing out 8 solid hours in the office.
Now, I can say Juan and I have had that exact interaction. I don't know what time at night or whatever, but it's definitely been like an after hours. Oh, check this out. I figured out how to do this. Or, oh, do you think this will work? Yeah. And whether he actually likes it or not, his responses on Slack were very kind and very helpful. So, yeah, it didn't feel like I was annoying him.
Siua brings up a very good point. It's something that I've thought about, but I haven't really put into words until you did, which is if I leave the office space and I go home and I just solve my issue, I'm stuck with that until the next morning. I can't get out of my head. And at least for me personally, that's something that is going to keep you up at night. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to dream about it. I'm going to be coding at night. But if I have my office 4 steps away, I can really get up, write it down, or at least put a note there so I can remember next time, next morning when I wake up and I start coding. I can get that out of my head. I can finally be free of that. That thing that's keeping me preoccupied, and now I can actually relax at home. And that can be at 3 a.m. And maybe it's something that I just now, at least with Slack, I can schedule a message to go out tomorrow morning. But now it's out, and I had that opportunity. Which to some people, it's, oh no, that sounds awful. Why would you want to work, throughout all your afternoon? Well, it's not so much that I want to, is that I need to get it out, and I have that opportunity, which I like.
Yeah, and our industry is different than others. I mean,
Of
obviously,
course.
when you're in the tech space and the product development, software development, custom software, like pretty much everybody that's going to work in an agency or a company or a team like that, they're doing it because it is who they are. They just involve themselves 24 hours a day, whether it's on work projects, home projects, or just thinking about the space. This is going to lead into what we talked about last week as the slog, which is the time after you create a product or you bring your idea to life. You build that one thing that you think is going to be your dream come true. You're very passionate about it. And you have two choices. It's either wait for something to happen or make people care. And the only real application to be successful here is to make people care. And that amount of time after it's built to people care, that hard work that goes into that time is what we call the slog. So David spoke a lot about what's needed from the startup, either the entrepreneur or the stakeholders in that product, that business, that idea, and what they need to do. I wanted to kind of get a perspective from, as a company, as software developers, as a designer like myself or whatever, what we do to assist in that space in between V1, initial launch, and then any little changes we make or things that we do between then and making people care. And I will say marketing and the entrepreneur or the people responsible for the product, their efforts put forth in marketing and getting the word out and their passion behind it, talking to, networking with their peers or just trying to put some sort of advertising out there, getting an audience on social media, doing all that's heavily on their shoulders. But what do we do when they start getting feedback from people that are interested in the idea, but have some suggestions? They take it to heart and they see that maybe, okay, if we pivot here, alter this, change that slightly, it's still the same idea, but it's going to go in a different direction. Maybe they're finding more of a niche audience that's going to help benefit. How would you tout the flexibility between V1 and then possibly V2, V3, and how nimble do you think our company or a small product design agency can be between that and the slog?
I think from a development perspective, it's kind of straightforward. And this applies to pretty much any project that involves code. You always start off thinking that it's going to be something small, something simple. It is never small or simple. You always have an idea. You always have something you want to add to it, a feature, a new optimization. It's a never-ending struggle. But that in mind, what you want to do is you want to keep things scalable. And I know it's kind of like a dumb term, at least in my space, where scalable.
It's a buzzword, really, but it's a very important buzzword.
It is, and I always advocate for that when we're talking shop with a new client, with a project that we're either redesigning, rewriting, or just starting from scratch. Is that I want to take the extra time right at the beginning to build things a little bit more fortified. So I know that if I want to throw things on top of it, sort of say, I can do that. And a good example comes to mind is one of our clients that sells kids' book. And that project started very, very small, at least in the spec when we first got it. A year and a half in, that is by no means the same project. It's not the same application. It's 10 times bigger. And the only reason that we've been able to scale it so easily, well, quote unquote easily, it's because I did the best I could, thanks to the help of one of our other developers, John Hanke, to make the foundation solid enough that we can build on top of it. And we have continuously optimized the application, improved it. But we've been, at least me, because I'm the only one working on it, I've been able to do it very easily. at least easier than I can with a lot of the other projects that have a legacy package behind them. And I think being able to do that from the beginning, having the idea that you want to build for scale for the future, at least in the development perspective, allows a client to be able to say, you know what, we're pivoting, we got a new direction, we got a lot of client feedback, we know where the business is going. Let's drop that, let's shift here, let's go ramp up in that direction. If I'm sure a designer is going to take their time and they're going to have the conversation about how this is going to look and how, the caveats with this and that. But once that pretty picture is built, the developer has to be able to say, I can drop that and pick up where you tell me to go without taking 3 weeks, 4 weeks just to ramp up, which can be the case. At least from my side of the fence, that's what comes to mind. Right? Making sure our infrastructure is scalable.
So picking out the right architecture, the right, I guess you could say, code base or language to kind of benefit the project, not just for where it is, but where you can see it going.
Yeah, exactly.
So our version of the slog is kind of preparation and foresight, knowing that it's coming, knowing that it's going to change, get altered, build, scale, whatever in that way. Some projects that we take on that are legacy projects where it was already built by someone else with an older code base, but didn't really take off. Like the project is done. Their idea came to life, but it didn't really take off. But now they're going to pivot. Say they went, from whoever built it in the first place to us to kind of make those changes, make that pivot. That part of the slog for us is probably a lot harder to pick up an older legacy product or a different code base or someone else's, work, and then try to take that foundation and scale it forward. In that situation, what do we do as a best practice in our company? I know it doesn't make sense to rewrite the entire thing just because we have newer technology, newer code. It probably makes more sense to try to integrate as much as you can and then slowly revise as you build. Does that sound accurate?
I'm probably going to get a lot of slack from other devs, but I'm always let's rewrite first if we can. Otherwise, let's just build on top of it and pick up wherever the last team left off. And
that's a dev dream project right there. But same thing, like a designer will be like, oh yeah, this looks great. I'm going to do it all over. I'm going to start fresh and I'm going to change everything because I have a different vision. But we also have to take in the reality that the person already spent money getting this thing built.
Absolutely.
They've already created their dream. It's just not performing the way they expected. So now they have to try to make little pivots and changes because they are pushing it. They are making people care, enough people to where they know these little alterations will even get more people to care.
And it's not a matter of like, let's pick up, I don't know, we have a pretty massive project that we'll pick up on and off. And it's not that type of project where we're going to say, well, if the company is changing direction, let's just burn everything to the ground and start from scratch. Absolutely not. If it's small enough, sure. But mostly if it's a section of the app, and I don't know, they like David had mentioned before, they want to build LinkedIn into the application. That's something that's not a direction that they want to take anymore. That's probably a part of the app that involves too many things that are unrelated to that feature that we can probably just yank off and it'll serve us better moving forward. And it's hard to put it in, imagining it, but there's always at least one part of an application, one set of the code that you can definitely trash and start from scratch without having to necessarily waste time and effort, because there are often times where just building on top of legacy code that is just going to come back and bite you in the butt 3 years, 2 years, 3 weeks down the line. And if you can just avoid that, because you know it's going to happen, just do it. Just drop that, start from scratch, start better this time. It's not necessarily the whole thing, but just a part of it.
To quote David, who quoted Jonathan, who quoted someone else. So this is my Michael Scott quoting Wayne Gretzky, quoting Michael Scott moment. And I might not even be 100% accurate here, but I believe David said, we reserve the right to get smarter and do better. So
I like that.
In that period of time, if we do see a way to change or alter that framework so that it will be built better and more scalable going forward, or we see something that maybe we could change, even deeper down that framework pipeline, the foundation that'll help, it is beneficial to the client in the long run. It might take a little bit more time. It might take a little bit more money. It might be another sprint or two added to that. But if that's going to actually save hassle in the future and make the product better, of course, that's when we let David convince him that that's necessary.
That's where he comes in.
Now, see, as a project manager, like dealing with this stuff, I'm not a project manager, and I don't have a huge, understanding of everything you do, but I know it is definitely more than I know and needed far more than I can understand. But in talking to clients and in hearing them share their ideas and their passion for what they're doing, and then also being the intermediary between the clients and the sales and the dev, not just in our company, but just in your experience in general. Is that a tough situation to navigate, or is that something where you look forward to trying to tell the client, like, look, this is something we can do for you. It's going to be a little bit more. This is going to change, but ultimately the end result is going to benefit you more.
So I wouldn't say it's a hard thing to do. I have learned over the years to take my emotion out of it, because I was listening to the podcast last week, talking about the slog and getting other people to care. As a project manager, I really do have to pull back my emotions from the client and from, my devs, and just be like, okay, hey, this is your baby. My job is to organize it, to figure out what exactly you want, and go translate that to the devs so they can put it together.
Okay, so this is a perspective that I was not aware of, so I'm interested to hear more about this.
Yeah, and we have a big client right now that is asking for my opinions on how they should set themselves up. And I fired back. I said, look, this is not on me. I don't want to make this decision. Come back to me. When you have your decision, I want you to know we're getting to a point where it's going to push back our development if I don't get a response soon. And I say it nicely, and we're getting along really well, but I try and take myself out of the decision making and just, hey, I'm planning it for you. I'm going to lay it out, and just, we're going to make what you want happen, but I can't be a part of your decision making. Like, this is your thing. If you don't like it and we have to change it later on, fantastic. I'm happy to go tell them to change it later. But yeah, I pull myself out of it, because as a project manager, it's just, I don't want to be the person in charge of, deciding your company's future, if that makes any sense. That is not my wheelhouse. I'm just here to help organize people.
So once that decision is made, though, creating that roadmap to how it gets made from development to them or whatever, that's more of what you take.
That's more of what I will do. Yeah.
And so you've experienced a lot of that time in between, that slog time in between.
Yes.
Is it tough relaying information between the devs and the client if there is like a lag in what the client might see as progress versus it's just writing code takes time, writing software takes time, making it better takes time. And sometimes, their excitement, their anticipation, or whatever they think, or their perception of what should be easy is totally not the case. And you have to navigate that between the actual real work being done and then telling the client what's being done and how that actually is a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you an example. We were on a project. I don't think Juan is the one going to do this, but they told me to add a button. And they're like, oh, it'll be real quick. Just add this button. And I had to tell them, I was like, I don't think you understand. Like, adding a button is going to take 20 hours. Are you sure this is something you want us to do, is add this button? We could do it this way. And I just present all options. And, sometimes people think it's an easy thing, but they
think it's a rectangle on a page. They don't understand that what goes on after you click that button takes a lot more than just putting a rectangle on a page.
We're adding a toggle right now, and that toggle has had me had a conversation with 4 people, and there's 6 different things that need to happen in concert for it to work. There's
just one toggle switch to function correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's I think a lot of it is just relaying expectations and kind of getting them to be realistic and just, this does take time, my devs are happy to do it. I mean, if you want us to, we will do it, but it's going to take time, and it's just kind of a balancing act as a project manager.
Managing expectations. Previous episode. Getting back to the topic, the remote work thing from our perspective, from a developer's perspective and a project manager's perspective, extremely beneficial, and they love it. Works great. Never want to go into an office. That seems like a good fit for our people in our industry and our company. So that works out. And as far as the slog is concerned, whether you're the entrepreneur, the main person in the startup, the person with the idea, it happens on every end, every aspect of that idea from conception to completion. So you're not going through it alone. And shameless plug, Big Pixel is here to help you.
Yeah, no, it's important to bring up that we all want to make sure this thing succeeds from the design perspective, from the organization perspective, where the people actually write and go for it to work. None of us want to do our job poorly. None of us want this to make it difficult for anybody. Because if it doesn't work out for you, the client, it doesn't work out for us either.
Yeah, it is our job to facilitate the best outcome for you. And we do that by actually internalizing some of the passion that you have for that product as well.
Yeah, I mean, with enough time, this becomes our baby too.
Exactly. So earlier, I wanted to talk about something you guys brought up earlier. Very important. You were talking about Pokemon Go and AR and Free Guy. So the movie Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds, where he's kind of like the NPC, the non-playable character in like a video game reality. But then he puts on the sunglasses, like the AR glasses that the characters wear, and then they can see everything around them. Have you guys seen that movie?
I've seen enough trailers.
I have not, but I know the show enough. I've saw enough previews, and I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Have you seen the other Ryan Reynolds movie? It seems like Ryan Reynolds week on the podcast. The new one with The Rock, the Red Notice?
No, either.
No, not at all.
Wow. This is awkward. Okay. Well, I will say David's a huge fan of The Rock, right? And I'm a fan of Ryan Reynolds. I like his sarcasm and his quick little comments. And if you guys do have Netflix and you do have time, maybe coming up over Thanksgiving and you want to watch it, I didn't finish it yet, so I don't know how great it is, but I can tell you the first half is pretty funny. There's a lot of parts where Ryan Reynolds is just picking on The Rock, and it just made me want to laugh at David. So, which we will have David back next episode.
It made you want to laugh at David? Are you saying that The Rock or David looks like The Rock? I can see it. When
Ryan Reynolds makes fun of The Rock, it makes me think that David is getting offended. So that makes me happy.
Okay.
No, there's just comments he makes that's pretty funny. Well, we actually covered quite a bit today, so we'll probably wrap it up. I just wanted to mention a few things. We did not have any recent questions lately. A little disappointed in you guys. Not you two, not Juan and Siua, just, all four of our listeners. And I'm hoping that maybe one of you will have any questions or comments or even snide remarks. Email us, hello@thebigpixel.net. And if it's something that we can talk about, if it's something you're interested in or want us to cover, or if it's a topic we could bring up that might help, relate information between design development, product design, software design, and startups, entrepreneurs, we'd love to cover it. So hit us up at hello@thebigpixel.net. And then just before we go, just to toot our own horn, we're super famous now, guys.
Are we?
You might not know this. I'm not one to brag, but you might not know we hit just past 200 downloads. So
no way.
This is nice. This is where you put the applause in the background. So we're trucking along. We're happy about that.
Well, yeah, at episode 12, it's a pretty good one. That's pretty big.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Well, thanks to you guys. Seriously, thank you guys for being here, for helping me out today. We'll have David back next time. And until then, see you guys later.